Mooney, who's going to make the next introduction for our coming presenter.
Buenos dias. Saludos from El Paso, Texas. And I have 2 minutes to do my introduction, but since I'm also kind of filling in the time, I wanted to make a small presentation. A lot of people have heard the name Mary Mooney, but they're, oh, you're Mary Mooney. So number one, I want to share that the reason that I'm probably in the room is my association with a project, which was the National Multicultural Interpreter Project, of which I was project director for 5 years. And a lot of people ask, what is the outcomes of those early years of curriculum development? It was the power of collaboration. So as Rogelio, don't let him leave the room. Hold on, tell him. No, grab him. I didn't want to yell into the microphone. So Rogelio challenged us on the power of collaboration, and I really believe that the NMIP model began that in a way that has only begun to bear the fruit of bringing such talented individuals together. And those were planting seeds. And also, Rogelio at dinner asked me, what is your role? You know, because I'm on the board, but it's almost an ad hoc and kind of an honorary position that I hold. So I'm going to tell Rogelio that my new role in life, in mi familia, and my father is 100% Sicilian. So, you know, I can claim mi familia. I was adopted, and I think my role is madrina or maybe midwife. I don't share the DNA, but I'm there watching the birth process. Sometimes I have, you know, literally life in my hands. And over the many years of El Paso, I've taught 25 years at El Paso Community College. We have produced probably over 80 working trilingual interpreters that are in the nation. But what happens is, we end up in El Paso in your communities where you have the phenomenon called the brain drain. You work, you grow the talent, and then where do they go? They move to Austin. I cannot figure out why this happens, because we know El Paso is the most beautiful place. So Rogelio, because you are our native son, I want you to wear this t-shirt, because I don't want it ever to be confused. You know, that you're just from Austin, Texas, but your home is in El Paso, and consider me to be a madrina. And I get to pinch.
Always been my home.
And I get to pinch the cheek and say, I knew you when you were this high and you had little curly hair. And you're a beautiful young man.
Don't tell my secrets.
All right, why am I here? I'm here to introduce our keynote and our plenary session. And the power of NMIP was the power of collaboration, but we also had the power of invitation. And oftentimes in a community, Italian, Latino communities, it's not enough just to send the email or to write a letter. I recently got invited to a quinceañera where the invitation was delivered by the mother at my home with her sister, and here was the invitation. So we have a woman, Dr. Linda Houghton, that we have been working with for many, many years on the Trilingual Task Force. And we invited her, she invited us, and we have become a partnership in El Paso with a wonderful organization called APITA, the El Paso Interpreters and Translators Association. And what we found was there is far more in common than there are differences dividing us as interpreters. And as I saw Mr. Dieppa, his face, he was nodding and smiling at so many of the resonances where our work overlaps and complements each other. So it was with great, wondrous synchronicity that Jorge Dieppa was our first translator for many of the translations of the Code of Ethics, some of our script processes that we did with the National Multicultural Interpreter Project, and here he is today on the national level. And he reversed the brain drain because coming from Puerto Rico to El Paso, when we lose one, we get one. So if anyone would like to become an honorary El Pasoan, our door is always open. Mi casa es su casa. And I would love to become your madrina in El Paso too. So come on over. Okay? My pleasure.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Mano Board of Directors for their kind invitation to be a part of this. And this is my opportunity to give back. I know that sign language interpreting has been recognized as a profession for many, many years. And only 5 years ago were interpreters licensed in Texas. It's incredible that that would be the case, but court interpreters, they could just grab anybody off the street, and they still do in some counties, and just use the child as an interpreter, or use anybody out of the community. There was even a situation in Alpine, Texas, where they would bring an illegal alien to federal court who had been detained. And who do we use as an interpreter? Well, let's use this border patrolman. I'm sure he will interpret fairly accurately. And maybe he did, but you know, you have to really question the validity of that. So I really appreciate what RID has done in raising the professional level of interpreting and the awareness of it. And of course, working with Mary over the years at different times has been a great satisfaction to me. Now, I don't know any sign language. I don't use sign language. And hopefully I can transmit to you some of the principles that I've gathered over the years in training of interpreters and in being an interpreter myself. That can help you see some of these things. I'll tell you a little bit about me. Let's see if, there it is. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, so Spanish is my native language. It was interesting, when I went off to college, people said, "Oh, you're from Puerto Rico. What's it like to grow up as a minority?" I don't know. Everybody's Puerto Rican there. Well, there was a few gringos here and there, but they were nice people, you know. So it's interesting, you know, how people say things. And again, coming around in full circle, we had Dr. Quinto talking about testing. One of my first experiences was with my father. My father worked as a test designer, and he designed the Prueba de Aptitud Académica, which is the Spanish equivalent of the Scholastic Aptitude Test. It's the testing for entering college. It's used in Chile and Mexico and many other countries. And so even in 8th grade, I was a proofreader for that. Because my father would bring things home and galleys and checking things. And I've always been fascinated by language, and I've always been fascinated by testing and training. So as many of us, I started as a volunteer interpreter. Hey, you're bilingual. Come here. You can do this. And as we've seen as professionals, some people have some natural ability. I was blessed with being raised studying English and Spanish, not just hearing it. On the border now, there are many people that are what we call legacy speakers of Spanish. People whose family speak Spanish but who never actually studied it. And so that becomes difficult for them to actually perform beyond a certain level. In community interpreting, they can do fine. But once you get to like an IAP, the individualized IEP, individualized educational plan in the schools, where they have to design an educational program for a child with a disability, for example, things just get too technical for people that haven't actually studied the language. And eventually then I became accredited by the American Translators Association as a translator of Spanish to English and English to Spanish. And then I became certified by the federal courts and became a full-time court interpreter, freelancing for many years, and then eventually